Our individual communities and our community at large have been through a lot these past months. We've watched and heard with horror about terrible things on all sides of the conflict far away overseas. While we are not there, it's affecting us here in a number of ways, in ways we couldn't have imagined. So what do we do, and what can we do? We can try to learn, to listen, to take in the complex, and to not be polarized. We can be respectful. We can do our best to embody what and how we hope our community can be, how Vermont can be different. We can strive for peace even when it seems unattainable, and we can try to build bridges and make connections and cultivate relationships. And that's what this event is about. The Parent Circle Families Forum is a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization made up of more than 700 bereaved families. Their common bond is that they have lost a close family member in the conflict. Instead of choosing revenge, they have chosen a path of reconciliation. And through their educational activities, these bereaved members have joined together to bring others on journeys of reconciliation. Tens of thousands of Palestinians and Israelis, others around the world, and now us. Out of these emotional and often raw interactions, change can come. Through this presentation of real stories by real people today, perhaps we can get to a different perspective about what's happening, about what relationships can be, and about what we want the world to be. We who organized this event want to name explicitly that we have yet to be working in relationships with Palestinians and Arab partners. We aspire to this, and we invite this, and we are actively pursuing this. And as I was advised by a peace worker, peace work takes years, and we're here for this. Now we have the privilege to hear the stories of two amazing and strong humans, Layla and Ofer. Layla, who lives in Bethlehem in the West Bank, Ofer, who lives in Galilee, Israel. Thank you for being here and welcome.
So I guess we are starting. Yes, this is it wasn't clear. Okay. So hello, everybody. Thank you very much to come for this event. Thank you for inviting us. As you understood, my name is Ofer Lior, and today I live in the north of Israel, in the Galilee, not very far from the border of Lebanon. I'm not evacuated, and my family were not evacuated, because where I live, there are not bombs falling or rockets falling immediately, but we do hear here and there, depends on each day. So we hear the booms, and we are kind of in with one eye watch all the time to see what's coming on us. So far, we are fine. So today I live in the north, but I will just share with you my story of who I lost and how I get involved with the parent circle and get to be part from the parent circle. So I was born in 1974. I'm 50 today, and I grew up in a family that left the kibbutz a few years before I was born, and the people that grew me up, my parents and my family, they were all people that were very good people, wanted to do the best for themselves and for their country. They were very kind of a patriotic Israelis, I guess. Um, and I was the youngest of four brothers. And the brother that was the closest to me, his name was Owen. He was killed in 1989 when I was 15 and he was 23. When Palestinians came through the border of Jordan, when he was a reserve soldier, and there was a very short battle there, and he got killed. Um, I grew up in an environment that it was very clear that we want peace, that we are looking for peace. But in the other hand, I didn't know and I didn't have any kind of connection with any Arab or Palestinians that live around me. I grew up in the center, not very far from Tel Aviv. There were many Palestinians who lives around us, not in my city, but in other towns and villages and cities. But we didn't have any kind of connection with them, and it's not something particular for my family. This is what everybody around me. We didn't have any kind of connection with Palestinians or with Arabs. The separation or the segregation was just almost totally complete. And also, as I was growing up, it was very clear that at some point you're going to have to serve in the army and be a soldier and be a good soldier. It was very clear. I had a brother who was in the army since I was maybe 5 or 6, and it was very clear that something that you are very proud of, something very important, and something that one day I will have to do as well, especially as a boy, but not only. And I don't think it was an easy thing to grow up with, this idea. And also it was clear that there is some kind of battle around me all the time, some kind of war, different level of war all the time. There was all the time people that you heard about in the news that's getting killed. There was all the time there were terror attack around me. I don't know where was the time I realized what exactly is going on. It was a process. It was just need to grow up like this. There was, at least as my first years, there was not much question marks about why does it happen? Why does it happen to us? It seems like there was some kind of very unhappy, maybe even bad people that somehow want to kill us because this is what happened to us all the time as Jews through all the history, and there was just another level of it. And I just grew up with this idea, but as I grew up more and more and I become more and more politically aware, I started to understand something is happening and that those people that were around me, but I didn't have any connection with, have a very different kind of life than I do. And I think somewhere when I became a teenager, I started to ask questions. And then more or less at the same time, Oren got killed. Oren was a reserve soldier. He was out of the army. After he finished the army, it was in the 80s, he went to do a big trip in South America, in Brazil, in Peru, other places. Came back and just was called to serve in the reserve military service. He was called to a place that wasn't even so considered back then, and also today. The border with Jordan was one of the peaceful border that, comparing to Lebanon or the West Bank or to Gaza, it wasn't a place that was considered danger. And while he was there in the first days, he was in the military service. He was the commander of a small unit that was just rolling on the border, making sure nobody's getting in. And they found something in the middle of the night, 10 in the night, in the middle of the desert, the way to Eilat, and if you know it. And then somebody just starting to shoot at them, and the unit started to shoot back, but Oren was unlucky enough to get a bullet in the chest, and he just fell and lost a lot of blood. And after a few, maybe hour or something like this, they declared his death. I was 15. I was in a class party, came back, went to sleep, and waking up in very early in Saturday morning just to realize that my life was not going to be the same as it used to be. I saw my parents in a situation of very heavy grief that a lot of it was kind of on my shoulder, which I didn't even know exactly what to do with it. And there was not even many question about why exactly did it happen. It was just something that happened. This is our life here. We live here. Somebody sometimes is shooting us or trying to kill us. It took me a while to start really to ask questions. Who are those people? Why somebody come in the middle of the night, in the middle of the desert to kill somebody else? What was the issue? And the more I was looking for answers, the more I realized that there is a very unequal society or unequal positions we are living in with the Palestinians, that those people have no rights, have no self-determination, just living in a very different conditions than I and many of my friends and my family are living. I was also in the army. I wasn't in combat. And when I finished the army, I started to work in a youth movement that was in the 90s. And among other things, we used to have meeting with Palestinians, even from Gaza and many from the West Bank. And for me, it was really something to learn from, or not sure exactly what is the English term. I just find a new word when I started to to speak with Palestinians and to hear something about their life in a way I never did before. With mostly people from Nablus I used to have connection with, and I just learned so much, and it was really exciting about it. And I was really liking those meetings. We used to have seminars of like youth that used to come, and we used to facilitate them to how to live together, how to build bridges between those people, between these young people. It was in the 90s, so people were very, very hopeful. It seems like, there was the Oslo process, and then after that, even when Rabin was assassinated, which was hard, but it felt like we are going in the right direction. Even in those times, I never shared so much with people what happened to me. I didn't know exactly how to combine my personal story of losing a brother and, suffering, the suffer that I was went through, and still, because the pain was still there. I didn't know exactly what to do with it. Maybe I told it to people I work with, but it wasn't something that I knew exactly what to do, what they can do about it. And I just continued to do what I do. I loved having connection with the Palestinians. Later on, the second Intifada started in the year 2000, and then many of those connections I didn't know how to preserve them. And I just go on with my life, although I was very involved in different kind of peace dialogues and peace meeting between Jews and Arabs, Jews and Palestinians. And I just carry this story all the time, and I didn't know exactly. I knew there is some kind of connection. Of course, it not need to be very sophisticated in order to identify it, but there was something there that just I felt that something is missing in my activism because it was there and I did nothing with it. Um, and even though I knew about the parent circle was established in 1994, I think, or 95, and I knew about it. I didn't know exactly how to connect with them. I wasn't sure, and I think in something it's true about many Israelis or people I wasn't sure that my loss is connected enough or important enough to be part of it. Um, Also, the parent circle, I wasn't a parent. Many times, brothers or sisters, they felt as if their loss is more significant or more terrible, and I don't think so. I think it's different than parents. It's not the same as parent, but it's not less or more. And then few years later, when I was already a father, also a young child, I was in a meeting of the parent circle completely by coincidence. I was coming to do some project in some school here in the north, and there was a meeting there of the parent circle, and I just asked, can I come and listen? And they say, yeah, sure, you can. I even came maybe in the second part only of the meeting. And this meeting, there was a woman that she was a sister that she lost her sister in some of the terror attack from the north that happened here in the 80s. And I was just felt very much connected to how she said it, to what she said. And I felt like she represents something that I could never bring up in my activism and in my life. I just went to her and to the other Palestinian guy that worked there after the meeting and says, "Hey, how can I join your organization? How can you join your your group?" They gave me a telephone or an email, and I just made connection. And ever since I part of the parent circle, it was in 2007 or 8, I'm not sure. Um, and ever since I did dozens, probably hundreds, dialogue meeting, mostly inside schools in Israel. This is the main place I was working with. Um, the the dialogue, the parent circle doing many over the years, many meetings inside schools in Israel with two people like us coming, an Israeli and Palestinians, each one sharing his side. We're getting into a class of 30, 40, 35 students. In the last years, there is a very heavy battle of people in the right, including people in the government, that try to provide us and to get into the schools. And this case was even in court in the last few months. Right now, we cannot go into schools, mostly because since 7th of October, Palestinians are completely forbidden to get into Israel, so they cannot come. But even if there will be if the Palestinians can come into Israel, the Ministry of Education really trying to avoid those kind of activities. They're threatening schools that they will make them all kind of troubles, if they will allow having these meetings. There were, until the 7th of October, they still were schools that we work with that still were insist to do these meetings. But of course, since the 7th of October, we didn't have any. And maybe now we are starting, probably it will be next year, hopefully, we might be able to start some of this again. And it's very significant meetings. For most of the students, it's the first time to meet any Palestinians and to hear a Palestinian and to hear a Palestinian that speaks about his loss and about his life in general. It shows you something about how much the segregation and the separation is heavy here. And the last thing I would say is that I think what we, the parent circle, as me as a member of the parent circle, what we are trying to do, what I'm trying to do, is to bring hope. Because I think one of the things we are struggling with right now here, for many years, but of course, since the 7th of October, much more is a desperation and a feeling that nothing's gonna work. There's no other way. Maybe the only way it's violence, the only way is military attacks. There's nothing else we can do. You hear it over and over again, mostly from young people, mostly from people who grew up in the last 10, 15 years of very heavy despair that sits on everybody here. And this is what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to show that if we that suffer what we have suffered, and still, I'm not, the pain, I'm still missing my brother. It's not something that over, I'll miss him probably until the day I will die. But, we could have made a decision that we want things to be different for other people and for the world. We could have made a decision that we don't want a revenge and that we don't want to keep fighting, probably because it's not useful, and also because we are really missing a possible connection with wonderful people in the other side. And, Jews and Arabs historically are not enemies. Anti-Semitism didn't came from the Arab. Jews and Arabs, Jews lives among Arabs mostly peacefully during many, many years. We can change it. We will need to look with a lot of integrity about the situation, because there is an oppression toward the Arabs, toward the Palestinians. There is an occupation that Palestinians are suffering. And when I say occupation, it's not so much about the lands. The land is just a tool, maybe. It's about their life, the right. Palestinian everywhere, but especially in the West Bank and of course in Gaza, just have much less rights than we have, the Jews. And it's not because we are bad people, the Jews, it's just because how much we're scared and confused. And this is what and I think we in the parent circle, this is what we are trying to bring, at least to my people, to the Jews who live in Israel and in Palestine, that there is another way, that there is an option, and it's in our hand. We just need to make the right decisions. This is what I would like to share with you, and thank you for listening. And please, thank you.
Thank you, Ofer, and thank you for inviting us today to share with you and to speak a little bit about the situation here after the 7th of October. My name is Leila Sheikh. I live in Bethlehem. I was born and raised in Jordan, and my story started even before I was born. My family, they are originally from Bethlehem, but they went to Jordan when my father became a teacher, and he wanted to teach the children in the camps in Jordan. After that, the war was started in 1967, and during that time, the Israeli government took a decision to close the border and didn't allow the Palestinian to return back. So my family lost their citizenship as Palestinian, and they become Jordanian. I didn't visit Palestine, but I heard thousands of stories about it from my father, and I love it from what I heard from my father. And he have stories about his childhood, about his relative, about many things. So after I finished my study in accounting and business in Jordan, I met my husband. He's originally a citizen in Bethlehem. So I came to Palestine in 1999, and I was so happy because for me it was a dream and dream come true. And first year was amazing. Everything was like my father said. I tried to visit all the places, all the people that he talks about. And after a year, we have our first daughter, and our happiness become much more because we start to have our own family. And after 2 months after we having our daughter, the second intifada started. And during that time, the Israeli government take a decision not to give people like me who came from Arab countries a Palestinian ID. So that meant I can go freely from place to place, and even I can visit my family in Jordan. But I didn't care too much because I have my husband and my daughter to take care of. And after a second year, we have our second son, and our happiness become much more because our family started to grow and we start to have many plans for both of them. But that happiness was ended 11th of April 2002. At that time, my son, his name's Qusay, at that time he becomes 6 months old. That night, the 11th of April 2002, the Israeli soldiers came to our village and they threw tear gas. And because of that, he becomes so sick. And the treatment in our village wasn't good enough. So we tried to take him to a hospital inside Bethlehem, but again, they prevented us. And they said, Bethlehem is a military zone, you can't enter. So the last choice was to take him to Hebron, the next city to Bethlehem. But again, they told us that the main road is closed. So the last chance was to take him, but we should have a long and rough road between villages. But finally, or after a few maybe minutes, we stopped for the third time from Israeli soldiers. They searched the car, they searched the ID of my husband and my father-in-law. And then my father-in-law started to tell them how much it's important for us to be in a hospital because our son became very, very sick, but they didn't listen and they asked us to wait. During that time, I started to think that I should take a risk, and that risk will be if they find that I didn't have a Palestinian ID, maybe they will take me to jail or they send me back to Jordan. But the only thing that I was scared about and think about that time had to save my son. So I went to them, I started to talk to them in English, but even though they started to laugh and ask me to stay in the car, so they stopped us more than 4 hours. And when we reached the hospital, the doctor said it's too late to save his life. And the end of that day, he died. And I was really shocked. Sorry. At that time, I was 24 years old. My family wasn't there. I lost my son. And that was so hard for me to accept. And I remember when the doctor told us that our son died, I felt his word was like a bullet comes to my heart, smash it down for many pieces. I started to scream like a crazy, cried, I didn't know what to do. And I remember at that night, I have a dream that there's a white dove came and stand on my shoulder and said to me, Mama, don't cry, I'm so happy. I couldn't stop crying from that day until today. Every time I think about him or even speak about him or meet anyone at the same age of him. From that day, I was filled with hatred and anger to all the Israeli people because for me, all of them were responsible about his death. But at the same time, I didn't think to take revenge because revenge for me will never bring my son back. And I take another decision that I want to just take care of my daughter, take care of my husband, and keep them away from this cycle of violence as much as I could. So the time passed, and after 3 years, or during these 3 years, my husband, my family tried to convince me to have another children, and I refused. And one day my doctor asked me, why didn't want to have other children? I say, why I will have them? If finally I will lose them, they will be part of the cycle of violence, even if I don't want to. If they are not being killed, they will spend the rest of their life in jail. But finally, after these 3 years, I have another boy, and we give him the same name because I don't want to forget anything. So time passed, and after 16 years, I met one of my friends who participated in one of the project in the parent circle, and he started to talk to me. And in the beginning, I refused to listen to him, and I said to him, are you crazy? You know what happened to me? And then he said, I want to ask you a question. Why until now you didn't tell your other children who came after him about their brother and about his story? I said, because I didn't want them to be part of this cycle of violence, because maybe if they know, they start to think they start to think to take revenge, and I will lose them. And I lost one of them, and that was much more than enough for me. I can't lose another one. And then he said to me, so maybe this will be a good chance for you, not just to protect your family, maybe other families. To be honest, beginning, I wasn't really convinced about what he said, and I thought he imagined that until one day when he invited me to a conference in Bethlehem for the parent circle. And when I went there at the beginning, there were just Palestinians. We sat, we talked. 5 minutes later, when the Israelis start to enter that room, I start to feel there's um, something echoing in my chest, and I don't want to be with them in the same room. And I tried to leave. But my friend asked me to stay and to listen. Since we arguing about that, I saw something really amazed me when I saw the Israeli and the Palestinian hug each other and laugh and kiss each other like not just as a friend, like family members. Then I said to him, okay, I want to sit to see what's the thing that make them so close to each other like that. And that was the first time I heard Israeli spoke about how they lost their beloved ones. And that day I felt we shared the same pain, we shared the same tears, even if we had different circumstances, but we're still human. And nothing worse than losing a child or a family member. And no one can understand that pain unless someone be in the same situation. So I decided to participate in one of the projects called Parallel Narrative Project to learn much more about the other. We met 8 times. We have 2 professors from both sides, one Israeli, one Palestinian, who spoke about the history of the 2 nations. We went to visit Yad Vashem Museum in Jerusalem to learn much more about the Holocaust. We even went to visit a Palestinian village was existed before 1948. It's not about comparing the pain. It's not about comparing who's first, who's second, who's right, who's wrong, but to give a chance for both sides to understand and to learn and to hear. So I remember the first thing they asked us was to spoke about something happened during the conflict affect our life. And that was the first time I spoke in front of people, not Palestinian, not Israel. That was the first time I spoke about my son. Even between me and my husband, we didn't spoke about him since his death. So that was so hard for me. Like after 16 years to spoke about him, it was like to open the wound again. I start to cry, couldn't complete the story. And there's an Israeli woman, she came and she started to apologize. And she said to me, yeah, I didn't hurt you, but the people who hurt you are my own people. And I'm a mother too. I could understand your pain. I could understand the words that you couldn't say. And she came and hugged me and both of us started to cry. To be honest, that was the first time someone talked to me like that, even from my family members. No one spoke to me like that. For me, that was the first time I felt that there's someone care about me and could understand me. So from that day, I decided to be a member in the forum, started to give lecture inside Israel, Palestine, even travel around the world to spread the message of peace and reconciliation. And that was so easy to talk about peace and love and reconciliation. And I asked myself many times if I really meant every word I say or everything I did until one day, like a year ago or 2 years ago, we've been in Jerusalem with other NGOs and other people from other organizations who start to talk about their personal stories. And after me and my partner finish our stories, there's an Israeli man who stand up and he started to talk. I know him like 3 years ago, but that was the first time I listened to his story. And then he mentioned that he served in my area and he prevented a Palestinian couple which have sick children from going to a hospital. Then it's become hard. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And I started just to cry, look to him. And I was really shocked because in my whole life, I didn't thought that I would meet one of those soldiers. And to be him, one of those soldiers, that was so hard for me. Then my colleagues asked both of us to go outside and to talk. And then he said to me, look, Layla, I know this is so hard for you, but it's so important for me to tell you that. And then he mentioned that after time, his son becomes sick. And when he tried to take him to a hospital inside Israel, the guard stopped him because he want to ask him a few questions, and they were in a hurry. And then he said to me, then just I realized what I did to the Palestinian. He quit from the army and he refused to serve, and he jailed because of that. And after that, he established a new organization with ex-Palestinian fighter called Combatant for Peace. And then I looked at him and I said, look, Khan, this is so hard for me to listen to your story. But at the same time, I want to thank you. Because if I know that part of your story was there and you didn't tell me, I'll never forgive you. But because you have been so honest and you have that courage to speak in front of me, I could forgive you. Then I realized this is the real reconciliation. It's easy to speak about these lovely words, but sometimes you just ask yourself about if it's true or not. But in that day, I really realized that I meant every word I say, I meant everything I did, and even that gave me a power and courage to continue, even in these dark times. We are in the worst war, I think, in our history. And all people just think and care about, because I know what's going on there. It's so hard to even believe sometimes, but they forget and they didn't know anything about what happened to the West Bank. Since the 7th of October until today, we still under closure. The noise. And we didn't have shelters. And all the people who work inside Israel, they lost their jobs for many months. Most of the children, they couldn't go to school. And even if they went, they just went for one day. In my village, there's like 10 rockets fell down, and we didn't know if it's from Hamas or if it's from the Iron Dome in Israel. Daily, the settlers attack um, the village, the Palestinian village. They burn their houses, they burn the cars, and sometimes they attack them in the street. And the problem that the army, they encourage them and they um, take care of them. They didn't even stop them. I know this is hard, but as Offer said, we still believe and we still have hope to find peace one day. We didn't know when, and we are not politicians to decide it. What's the solution? We believe that every soul is so precious, and God created us to love and to live, not to kill each other. Thank you so much.
So the first thing I want to say is I'm not sure where the camera is, but as much as any of but the mic's not? Okay. So as much as any of us can make eye contact to say, it's really, yeah, as much as any of us, there we go, thank you. As much as any of us can say thank you for being here with us today, for sharing your story, that is where we start. We start from that place of gratitude, not just for today, but for all the days before. And there is so much that we have to ask. But I just want to take that moment first in silence to honor what you have given to us today, because there isn't a greater scripture than the lives that you've just offered us, right? That's how the Holy speaks to us. So let's just take a moment. So I'm the Reverend Alyssa Jonk. I serve at the First Congregational Church just across the way, and I'm the one who gets to collect the questions that you have and offer them up. So if you have a note card and have written a question on it, or haven't yet written a question on it, the time is now. Okay. And folks will come by. To collect them. Are there any over on this side? I'm going to collect them all first, just in case there are some themes that we can sort out to make the best use of your time. Great. Reverend Karen has an exercise that she was going to do to help us transition later, but while the questions are being collected, she's going to lead us in that.
So for those of you, wow, okay. The mic knows my voice and not Pastor Alyssa's. We'll just say, I recognize that. So if you're writing, please write your note. But if you are not writing, I want to invite us into a somatic grounding exercise to recognize the gravitas of what we just heard. So this is, of course, optional, but my invitation starts with each body in this room and the bodies who are far away but in our hearts here, Lila and Ofer, to find a posture of dignity, whatever that is in your body where you are sitting now. Recognizing that the dignity you bring to your body at this moment honors the dignity of the stories we have just heard. And the next part, to ground ourselves, if your feet are on the floor, for us to acknowledge that the floor is connected to the ground, is connected to the earth, and to move your feet perhaps from heel forward to toes, and toes back to heel, to remind you that you are here in this place, together with people who are seeking love and peace. And given the stories of violence and deep loss that we have just heard and offered our witness to, I invite you to notice where your shoulders are. Are they up where your ears are? Are they tight? And if so, can you find a way to let them drop, to loosen them? Perhaps in circles, if your body allows that. I know some of our bodies find pain there. But to open. And lastly, to find your soft and gentle and friendly hand, either fingertips or palm, and place it in that part where your shoulder joins your chest, and just offer a gentle push that opens your chest to allow a breath that your body knows, that we might open to the questions and the responses, for there might not be answers that we hear in this next portion of our presentation.
Okay, back up. So the first, we do have quite a few questions, but the first is merely, not merely, but is a comment. I believe that this is a turning point for humanity, that this war is a turning point for humanity, and thank you for your stories, and we're all sending our love to you and all of your families. Several of our questions revolve around the theme of what is an oppressed population to do? What are oppressed populations to do in this situation? How do you go about the next steps? What are those? do you have any suggestions or thoughts about what that looks like? Is there a path forward for those who are living under oppression?
I think in our organization, we are not politicians, so we don't think about what the solution will be, because this is not the thing that we will decide. The only thing that we care about and to think about how to make reconciliation between the people who suffered daily from this war and from this occupation. Because when Oslo Agreement happened, the politician will never came to ask me or ask offer, what's your opinion? And even when they make war, they will never came to ask us, what's your opinion about that? So they are the one who decided when they will make war, when they will make peace. But we believe that there's another power comes from the ground. It's the reconciliation. Because when Oslo Agreement happened, the people wasn't ready to accept that. And because of that, it was failed. No one from both sides was really ready to accept that. But now we believe that if now what the solution will be, everyone will accept it, because we feel enough. We lost thousands of people during 76 years. And we said now enough is enough. It's now the time to have solution, not just for us, for our children, our grandchildren, for that generation will come after us, and ask themselves what they did to stop this. We didn't want them to say they just sit side and just watch. No, we should do something. And if you could ask me what the thing that give me that hope to continue, I will tell you, I always remember the dream that I have about my son as a white dove. I know that he's happy with God and because he's just 6 months old, but I wasn't understand at that time why he came as a white dove. But when I became member of the forum, I start to realize that was kind of message from God, and this is that, or that he want to tell me like, this is your new mission. And as you know, the white dove is the symbol for peace, and he want the death of my son went without achieving something. So this is maybe the most thing that give me the power to continue and to have hope all the time. Thank you.
I think one of the things that we try to show as an organization is the importance of equality. The Parent Circle, it's have two chairmen. One is a Israeli Jew, the one is a Palestinian. And I think, even though I don't know, I have my ideas about what the solution can be, I don't know exactly how to do it, of course. And also I don't have the power and the resources to do it. But I think the way to it must be to build an equality world, either in terms of economically and also, of course, in terms of rights. There's different ways to achieve it. And I think one of the things that is important to this process is to acknowledge that the fact that there is no equality, this is what oppression means, in my, at least in my head, that there is an ongoing inequality and people that have been denied for very basic rights. And what I'm trying to do, at least with the Jews I'm working with, Israelis I'm working with, is that they will acknowledge the fact that there is such a huge difference of rights according to, and such a huge disequality. And I think for me, the 7th of October, what happened in Gaza, it's such a poor place for so many years. It's almost, people couldn't go out of it, couldn't go, not now, before the 7th of October, for years. And it was a very poor place economically. There was a huge struggles there before the 7th of October. And this is what this equality is bringing. It's bringing a lot of violence, a lot of hate, a lot of disconnection. And this is what I think that we should, that we should acknowledge the fact that there is an oppression, acknowledge the fact that there is a huge disequality, and try to work in order to change this solution for the best of everybody. This is my interest as an Israeli Jew, that the Palestinian will have a good life. It's my interest as a human being, but also as an Israeli Jew. I want Laila to have a good life. I want everybody there to have a good life. I think it's the best for me. I don't think I can have a good life until they will have a good life.
Thank you for that. That is in many ways a connection to the question, there's peace and there's justice, and how they connect for you. I think you've really gone into that. But if there's anything else you'd like to say along those lines, how the peace and how the justice connect for you, we'd be really glad to hear it.
Laila, you want to say?
I don't believe in justice because, and if we think about what's going on in the ground, no one have justice, and I believe justice will be just when God finish everything and all of us stand between His arms and for judgment. I think then just everyone will have his justice, because every one of us has his own what they said. Sorry, sometimes I I forget the word, but like what's the meaning of justice? Like maybe I think in some way, and maybe offer a thing like in another way, and maybe you could think it in another way. But we believe that this will be end one day. We didn't know when, we didn't know how, but one day it will end. Because if we look to the history of other kind of conflict or in other area, it's end. But what we try to do to stop losing people from both sides, civilians, we didn't want mothers or brothers or fathers to lose their loved ones, and for what and for whom, and like all this kind of question I ask myself always about why all this happened, for what. One day me and you and our friend, everyone will die. So why we didn't spend our life to do something good, to love each other, to try to do our best to improve our life, not to bring much more miserable to our life.
Thank you.
Uh,
And how
Maybe
is that?
I would
Sorry.
just add, about the question of justice is like, I mean, if we see two babies, and a Jew and Palestinians, a Jew and Arab, you probably wouldn't know even to identify who is the Jew and who is the Arab. And it's very clear that both deserve a good life. And I think, this is that there will be the gaps that are happening right now here. This is the injustice. And it's not because somebody is bad and somebody is good. I don't think, as a Jew, I don't think I'm Israeli Jew. I don't think I'm bad. I don't think my people are bad. I know there are good people. Many of them I don't agree with, but I don't think the vast majority of them, they are bad. I don't think everybody born bad. We see babies, they're so innocent and so sweet and so loving. We could find a way to preserve it. I think that will be adjusted, that everybody have the opportunity to have this kind of, to profile himself, and herself in that way, that it will not be in the expense of anybody else. I think it's possible. I don't think there's any other way, actually. But
So how is that message received where you are now? how does that message go over when you do these events with your colleagues now at events at home?
I don't understand exactly the question.
The question is, if these happen at home, right? If you were to meet and have a parent circle event, how would that go over? How is that message of peace and love and reconciliation received by your friends and your neighbors?
Yeah, you could find many thoughts, but of course you could find the main two things. The people who agree and who support it and who encourage, and the people who against that, and they will try to encourage you to stop doing this kind of things and start to say that you make normalization, and this is kind of betrayed your case and you betrayed your people. So it's not easy. It's like to swim against the tide. And we know it's hard, even in these times, like after the 7th of October until today, our work become much more hard and more and more, because every day many people lost their life. Every day the war become much worse and worse, and there's no any like there's not anything that we know when this will end and how and what will happen next. So this is what make our work is so hard. Like when I become a member of the forum, my husband encouraged me, my family-in-law encouraged me, even my sister-in-law, she become part of the organization. But my oldest daughter, she was against that because she's the oldest. She know the whole story about her brother. And many times she asked me to quit. And to be honest, I didn't know what to say to her in the beginning. I didn't know how to deal with this new situation. But in every year, we have a ceremony called the Memorial Day. And that day, we remember all the people that we lost during this 75 or 6 years from both sides to um, to send a message to all the people around the world. If we are the people who suffered daily because of this occupation, and we are the people who lost their beloved ones, could stand side by side to try to find a solution and reconciliation, everything could be possible. So we have 4 speakers, 2 Palestinian, 2 Israeli, and I was one of the speakers that day. So when I returned back home, I was really terrified because I didn't know what her reaction will be. And when I opened the door, it was the middle of the night, and she's still waiting for me. And then she came and she said, "Just now I understand why you're doing this. I'm so proud of you." And she came and hugged me and she started to cry. And that was the most important point in my journey, because if my children could understand why I'm doing this, if they could believe in it, so everything will be easy for me. And now she become part of a women group and she become member, and thank God for that. But not everyone will agree. There's people still against.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I must say, yeah, it's a very, those are very hard times right now. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of messages that the other side is monsters, a lot of dehumanization. This hatred also seen between Israelis and Arab inside Israel, not only the Palestinians who live inside we call the 48 border. And, you know, we are still in a situation where the war is still going on. I don't know until when, but people are still getting killed. Soldiers are still getting killed. There are a lot of glorification of the war, I think, in many, many ways, that it's not easy to see. You know, in order to have a war, you need to hate somebody enough to, you know, to be willing or be terrified enough from somebody. So it's not easy to speak right now. But, you know, what I'm trying to say, and there are other people more and more, I think people see that this war is going nowhere right now, the war, what Israel is doing in Gaza. But the thing that, I'm trying to say all the time is, we need to, in order to make peace, you have to speak with your enemy. You can't speak with your friend, you can't make peace with your friend because he's your friend. You don't have any conflict with him, in order to make peace, and especially, in such a very heavy and long time conflict, you need to speak with the enemy. You need to speak with the worst enemy you have, and to find a way, to get to his heart, and to find a way that your interests are alike. And so, so I'm not desperate. I don't think it's impossible. I do think that after the war will over, after the war the fire will cease, it will be easiest to speak about it with people. Right now, the fear is so heavy. So many people have children in the army inside Gaza, which, I think, I hope people will refuse to go to serve there, but they are not, and people want to cooperate with the army. So many people have children in Gaza, or have friends in Gaza, or have people who live near the border. So the fear is so heavy, and there's also always a feeling that the other side, they are the monsters, we are the good one. The separation of good and bad, or as if you need to choose between sides. I think I think at some point people will open their eyes, but right now it's not easy to speak about it, and also there's a lot of angry about people who think differently. Yeah.
Thank you for that. We have, I think, time for one more real question, like the meat, and then we have a whole bunch of logistical questions for you that you can maybe answer. But the first is, sorry, I thought I had it right here in my hands. How do you encourage others to share their story, right? We believe very much in the power of story, and here in Burlington even, there's a real reluctance, right, to come forward and share how we're affected. So how do you go about doing that work?
You want to say?
We try to talk to them. We make like a national meeting sometimes to talk to other people who not member in the forum, but they want to know and to learn about that. And we start to encourage them to speak. It's not easy, especially for women. Even after many, many years, I saw many women, even after many times we sat with them, they can't. Because in our society, after you're losing a family member or someone, there's no any chance to see specialists to talk to, or to have a therapy. But we try to tween us to talk about that, because we believe that sometimes when you speak about it, you will never forget. But it's kind of you catch yourself when you speak about them, like you honor them, you let their memory still alive. So this is one of the things that we tell them to do.
And I would just add, I think the main tool we are using is just to listening. And people want to share the story, especially people who lost and have been in such pain and such heavy feelings, and people looking for somebody to listen. And I think this is the main tool we are trying to bring. Not that it's easy all the time, not that people, because all kind of cultural and personal stuff, issues, people sometimes it's very hard for them. And some people we don't manage them to encourage them to speak. But main things we are trying to do, and that I'm trying to do personally, is just to listen, and to listen with a lot of empathy and with no judgment. Just to let people to try to show them that the story is welcome and it's important, and every story is important of every human being, but especially people who been in such loss and such heavy circumstances. And we can't reach all with that. We don't have the resources for that. We don't have enough time and enough money, to reach all the people I wish I had. But I think this is the main thing we are trying to do, just to really listen.
Thank you. Listening too can be a risk, so thank you for taking it. And our
Yeah.
final questions tend to run along the themes of how can we help? What is it that we can do? The information about Parent Circle, we can certainly share. We'll do that after this. Is there a way to have ongoing relationships with folks who are there and in the Parent Circle, or places that we can reach out in that way? And some of us here are very aware of the Jewish Voices for Peace and are wondering if there is another group that is working for reconciliation, perhaps from Islam or the Palestinian Christians.
In our organization, there's Christian and Muslim and Jews. So we not care about what your beliefs. Even there's people who didn't believe in God at all. So it's not about religion. It's about the conflict, about people who losing their faith. And about your first question, could you repeat it again, please?
How can we help?
Yeah.
Like, what is there for us to do?
Oh, there's many things to do.
Excellent.
First of all, I think one of the most important thing for us, if anyone or if all of you, when you went back home, to tell our stories that you heard today, to tell the people around you, your family, your friends, that there's a people who really want to live, who really want this war to end, and they want to find a solution. Because I think this conflict now in every country in the world start to make troubles in other countries. There's between the government and the people, between the people who pro-Palestinian or who pro-Israel. There's many difficult times in other countries, we know that. So if you tell them about our stories, about our work, I think maybe this will let them understand what's going on here. And the most important thing for me, if you could talk to your politician and to convince them, if they want to spend money here in this conflict, they could spend it to find solution and to find peace, not to send weapon, because this will never help us in any way. Thank you.
And I will say I will kind of echoes Laila in one thing, and say maybe something more practical in the other. So first of all, yeah, I think it's important to U.S. in general and for U.S. Jews in particular to understand the role of the U.S. here in this conflict. U.S. have put a lot of resources, not necessarily for the good of the people who live here. They have their own interests, not necessarily the thinking. I speak mostly about the government, not necessarily the current one, but for the many, many years. It doesn't seem like the US, this is exactly what they have in mind. It's, caring about the people who lives here. They have all kind of interest about weapon, about oil. So I think to learn about it, to be aware about it, to understand the way that, in my mind, the war's imperialism is influence what's going on here. That's not to say that we are waiting to anybody. Okay, the peace will come from the Israelis and the Palestinians. Will not depends on anybody. But I think it's important to understand. I think it's important to US or Jews to understand, because I think many times these policies of the US is actually anti-Semitism in my mind, is to use Jews in a very choose Israel and you know as a Jew in a very particular way in order to kind of be a layer between them and other people. You know that the Arabs of the world, they hate Israel. They don't necessarily hate the US or their own governments even. They hate Israel. Palestinians maybe had good reasons. Other people, Israel do nothing to, but still there's a lot of hate toward Israel among the Arab world. And this is, I think, a result of this policy. So this is one thing. The other thing I will add to what Laila have said is that you can, if you have friends, people you know, connection in other synagogues, other congregation, other organization, that want to hear us, it's not necessarily Laila and I, but people from the parent circle want to hear about the parent circle, even to hear other organizations. It's very important that the peace organization that now in Israel will have a backup, not only in terms of resources, that also of course, but also in fact that people feel very, very lonely right now and very, very hard to keep acting in those in this environment. So if you have other places, you can invite us, you can invite other organizations just to hear and to be aware of what's going on here, that it's not only war, that it's not only the militarization and the violence, that our people here all the time, trying to create different reality and trying to change the reality, and that believe that we can do it. I think it help a lot. It's for us, it's very important, that you invite us, and, we meet every few weeks, in such, and there's many other people doing in all kinds of congregation all around the US, not only the US. So it's a lot of important, and, if you can have connection, that might help us, it will be for the good. And again, thank you very much for inviting us and for your listening. And I just, wish, we can be together. And if you come to Israel, of course, we'd love to meet you.
Thank
or to
you so
Palestine.
much. In fact, that's the last question. We had several folks who were like, how do we stay in touch? They're so moved by your story. So I'm sure we can all talk together about next steps at some other point. We are about to break into small groups and have conversations. What is the one question you wish we would ask each other?
Laila?
What do you think about what you heard today?
What did we think about what we heard today? Excellent.
As a Jews, what kind of feelings it bring up to you?
For those of you who are Jewish, what kinds of feelings does this bring up for you? Thank
yeah.
you. Yeah, well, I got it. So I don't know if you've noticed that I'm doing this dance back and forth, trying to look at you, and we're all going to do that dance right now. So there's a camera right here, and I'd love it if we could just stand and give a round of applause for the risk you've taken and the stories of your lives.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
for coming.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
listening.